welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
Hello, it's Rose here. We are on our holiday hiatus, and Christine and I are each taking some time to send out recordings to you of things that we love or things that we're thinking about to share with you during this holiday season as we take some time with our families. So today I want to ask you the question, I want the question asked, how is climate chaos affecting our animal friends? So this is thinking about all the things that are going on in the news right now. Recently, I came across an article on the blog Lion's Roar, Buddhist Wisdom for Our Time. And the name of the article was entitled, Here at the End of the World. It was written by author and Zen koan teacher Joan Sutherland. And here's the quote. The United Nations says that 1 million species could go extinct in the coming decades. What would that look like coming across our news feed? Imagine that the extinctions are announced one by one as they occur. How many alerts per day would that be? So if you just sit with that for a minute, that really hit me in the gut. 1 million species that could go extinct in the coming decades. For the most part, we don't know when a species goes extinct unless we are reading about it in the news. Scientists may not even know all the species that go extinct. We're being told that we're in the 6th mass extinction. And I can give you a link to an incredible book that was written by Elizabeth Colbert. She actually lives here in New England. It's called The 6th Extinction and an Unnatural History. It was the winner of a Pulitzer Prize, one of the New York Times book reviews, 10 best books of the year, and of course it was a New York Times bestseller. So I will include a link on Earth Feels podcast under this is episode 26. But be forewarned, it's not bedtime reading unless you like waking up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat. Anyway, this question about what would it sound like if we got an alert every time something went extinct, some sentient being went extinct. I've been especially tuned into the fires in Australia. I was privileged to have traveled there in the mid-'80s, before kids and before a mortgage, and my husband, at the time, we spent 3 months backpacking there. So it's a place that's near and dear to my heart. And we all know that Australia has been on fire. We see photos of Sydney choked with smoke, its iconic harbor bridge all but obscured in the smoke. And reports are that there are no less than 100 fires raging just outside the city limits. We know that the Great Barrier Reef is disappearing, and with it, one of the most incredible natural wonders of the world. Not to mention the species of fish and mammals that are indigenous to that part of the world. But still, our leaders diddle. Australia approved Adani coal mine, whose terminus is adjacent to the reef. So all this has my heart kind of palpitating and wakes me up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, even without reading The 6th Extinction. So this past week I came across an article by a woman. Her name is Gundi Rhodes. She's an Australian veterinarian, and her article shines a light on some of the devastation of the extreme heat in the land of Oz. And with her permission, I'd like to read a few paragraphs of her article entitled, Cattle Have Stopped Breeding. Koalas Are Dying of Thirst. A Vet's Hellish Diary of Climate Change. Bulls cannot breed at Inverell. They are becoming infertile from their testicles overheating. Mares are not falling pregnant, and through the heat, piglets and calves are aborting. My work as a veterinarian has changed so much. While I would normally test bulls for fertility or herds of cattle for pregnancy, I no longer do because the livestock has been sold. A client's stud stock in Inverell has been reduced from 2,000 breeders to 0. I once assisted farmers who have spent their lives developing breeding programs with historic bloodlines that go back 80 years. These stud farmers are now left with a handful of breeders that they can't bear to part with, spending thousands keeping them fed and going broke doing it. Cattle that sold for thousands are now in the sale yards at $70 a head. Those classed as too skinny for sale are costing the farmer $130 to be destroyed. They are all gone, and it was all for nothing. The paddocks are bare, the dams dry, the grass crispy and brown. The whole region has been completely destocked and is devoid of life. For 22 years, I have been the vet in this once thriving town in northwest New South Wales, which, as climate change continues to fuel extreme heat, drought, and bushfires, has become hell on earth. Here we are seeing extreme weather events like never before. The other day, we had about 8 centimeters of rain in 20 minutes. These downpours are like rain bombs. They are so ferocious that a farmer lost all of his fences, and all it did was silt up the dam, so he had to use a machine to excavate the mud. Most farmers in my district have not a blade of grass remaining on their properties. Topsoil has been blown away by the terrible strong winds this spring and summer. We've experienced the hottest days that I can remember, and right now I can't even open any windows because my eyes sting and lungs hurt from the bushfire smoke. For days I have watched as the bushland around us went up like a tinderbox. I've waited for the next day when my clinic would be flooded with evacuated dogs, cats, goats, and horses in desperate need of water and food. The impact of the drought on wildlife is devastating to watch. Members of the public are bringing us koalas, sugar gliders, possums, galas, cockatoos, and kangaroos on a daily basis. The koalas affect me the most. To see these gorgeous, iconic animals dying from thirst is too hard to bear. We save some, but we lose just as many. The whole town is devastated. My business is halved, but with no horses to breed, no cattle to test and care for, what am I going to do? I have worked night and day to build a future for my family, but who would want to buy our property out here? Who would want to buy a vet clinic in a town where there are no animals to treat because it's too hot and dry, where the cattle become infertile from the 40-degree heat? All this on black, baked ground. I am 53 years old. Can I start again? Climate change for us is every day, and I am not suffering on the same level as my friends, my clients, and the helpless animals I treat. As a veterinarian, I am becoming more and more distressed, not just about the state of my town, but the whole world. Personally, I have had weeks when I just cry. It just bloody hurts me. I also have times when I get really angry and I start to swear, which I have never done in my life. I also have times when I think about the potential this country has to create a renewable future with clean, green energy and end our reliance on fossil fuels. You only have to look at how resilient our farmers are in the face of devastating extreme weather conditions to understand that we can make a powerful, meaning difference to our future. Gundi Rhodes is a veterinarian, a scientist, a mother, a cattle beef farmer, member of the Veterinarians for Climate Action. And I think that her post really speaks to what is happening on the front lines that most of us in the comfort of our first world existence cannot understand. Just today, Gundi posted some photos of koalas coming into the farm next to hers in New South Wales. And I'll share the Facebook post on our Facebook page, on the Eaarth Feels Facebook page. But there was a note from her next door neighbor expressing delight but surprise that this one particular male koala had survived, noting that looking at the landscape, she could see how dry everything was, and that the temperature in Inverell was 44 degrees Celsius, 5.5 degrees Celsius hotter than the hottest day ever before. So the gum tree leaves that the koala usually eats don't have any water in them. And most of the koalas that they see are already in kidney failure. I think we've all seen the videos of people rescuing koalas, giving them water to drink. And the fact is that 8,000 of the 28,000 koalas that make New South Wales their home have perished in the fires, the recent fires of the area. And so as I was ruminating about this, my heart heavy, I came across another article that says almost 500 million animals may have been killed in the Australian wildfires. And again, I'd like to just read you a little bit of this. Researchers from the University of Sydney estimate around 480 million animals have been killed by blazes since they began in September. Among the victims are up to 8,000 koalas, almost a third of the New South Wales koala population, which have perished along the country's eastern coast. Koalas are one of the hardest hit species, primarily because they're slow moving and they live among the forested areas that are being decimated by the fires. The fires are burned so hot and so fast that there has been significant mortality of animals in the trees. But there is such a big area now that is still on fire, they will probably never find the rest of the bodies. And then beyond the fires, there's the Great Barrier Reef disappearing. In 2016, 2017, they had the great bleaching and the coral is just not coming back. It's not just in the land of Oz. There was an article this week about an oil barge sinking in the Galapagos. A crane fell on top of it and 600 gallons of oil were spewed into one of the most naturally sensitive environments in the world. The Galapagos is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's home to some of the most scientifically significant, unique ecosystems on Earth. It is a part of Ecuador. It's several hundred miles off the country's coast. But it's home to so many species that cannot be found anywhere on Earth. And actually, Charles Darwin did his research on that island, which eventually led him to his theory of evolution. Also in the news this week, there was a story about Ukrainian bears having insomnia because the warm winters are not cold enough. The coldest temperature is a high that the bears usually emerge from hibernation. And then there was an article about boaters killing a record number of manatees in Florida this year. I think we need to ask the question, are we okay with all of this? Some scientists say that we're in the middle of the sixth mass extinction, which is the book that I talked about a little bit earlier. It's as a result of human activity. Human activity changes or destroys habitats that animals need to survive. And because human populations are growing so fast, animals and plants are disappearing 1,000 times faster than they have in the last 65 million years. So it's estimated that in the 21st century, 100 species will go extinct every day. So going back to Joan's quote, can you imagine that going off? Can you imagine your phone going off 100 times a day, letting you know that something was going extinct? It's plants and animals, mammals, birds, amphibians, reptiles, and coral reefs and rainforests. And I think we really need to be asking ourselves what David Attenborough asked, and that is, are we happy to suppose that our grandchildren may never be able to see an elephant except in a picture book? That's what I've been ruminating on this week. Not exactly ho, 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 but I think we need some big answers as we step into 2020. So I hope you'll think about the world that we're leaving for our kids and our grandkids and for 7 generations forward. We are the stewards of our planet. We're just not doing a very good job. Thanks for listening. That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me. You see, your mother, she has been suffering, and the truth is told beneath the sea. So raise your voice